Welcome to another video on game development with Asha Akanksha Foundation. In today's video, we'll learn to configure the UI Text Match Pro buttons. We'll add functionality to basically switch between one scene to the other by clicking on those buttons. After that, we'll also place the crosses and ticks on the tic-tac-toe. So when the user clicks on any cell, that cell would be replaced by an image of a cross or a tick depending on the player's chance. We'll also switch between players according to after each click, so that the correct person's chance on the correct person's chance the correct symbol appears. Okay, so now we'll place those square boxes where the user can click to select to place a cross or or a circle. So for that we're going to insert here in a 3D object. We're just going to 2D object. So in the 2D section we have a square. So that is what we're going to place, and let me bring it to the front so that we can uh, configure its size properly. Right, so the size seems fine. And now we're going to place it at the right position. So that's going to be 3, -3. And this is 2.5. So this is also 2.5, 2.5. Or I think we can make it 2.7. Or I think we should configure this relative to the first block. So relative to that, we have -2 and 2. This seems perfect. Now we're going to duplicate this. Just duplicate it into 9 parts. This one is going to be 0, 2. And this one's going to be 2, 2. Similarly, we'll configure the other parts. And this one is the last row. We have -2, -2. And 0, -2. And lastly 2, -2. So this is one complete block which we're going to save as a prefab and then copy it to the other 9 sections as well. So I'm going to prefab this one. Let's create a folder for prefabs. Now we can delete the other 9, the other 8. Position them as well. So before that, let's open this prefab and make the color of these squares transparent. Let's prefab the square as well instead of changing all of instead of making a change, or maybe probably select all of them and make the same change there. Prefabbing and placing again would take a lot of time. Okay, so now we have these squares. Now what we want to do is place the smaller tic-tac-toes. Right, so everything is placed and we have a good setting here. Now what we want to do is we want to add some scripts to make sure that we are able to navigate between the different scenes. So for that we'll start creating a script. So we've created the script. Now let's open it in Visual Studio. Here we have it open. Now in the start canvas controller, I just need to add a function to move to the next scene. So for that I'm creating a function called open tic-tac-toe menu, and that is going to call scene loader dot load, sorry, scene manager dot load scene, and the scene name is tic-tac-toe tic-tac-toe start. We also need to import scene management for this. Unity engine dot scene management, and now this function needs to be basically linked to the button here, the button on the canvas. So we're going to apply this script to the canvas. Start canvas controller, and now in the tic-tac-toe button we'll create our first function, link the canvas object here, and from the start canvas controller we didn't make the function public, so that's why it's not visible there. So we'll make it public. Oh, we made the update function public, so we don't need them. Let's delete them. Yeah, so that was all. Now let's try this out. Okay, we got an error. So we haven't added the scenes to our build settings. So we're going to go to build settings, and here we have the scene add option. So we're going to go to the scenes and just drag and drop all the 3 scenes here. So here we were able to navigate to the second scene. So now in the same canvas controller, we can add functions for the other two the second scene as well. So for that we'll add the functions public open tic-tac-toe scene manager dot load scene tic-tac-toe, and this is for when the play button is pressed, and for going back open main menu, we'll go back to the start. So let's add this script to the canvas. Okay, so we are at the first, wait, so we're at the wrong page. This one already has the script. We have to move to the second scene, and to this canvas we're going to add the canvas controller. And in the play button we link this canvas controller. So here we add the canvas object, and we want to open tic-tac-toe. Again, make those public. Okay, they're already public. Something is wrong. I'm not able to okay, I didn't return anything, so the code didn't compile. And for the back button, again drop the canvas object, open main menu. So let's go back to the start scene. Okay, so here we are, and the back button takes us back to this page, while the play button takes us to the game. So I have downloaded two new sprites for the circle and cross symbol. So now we're going to add the circle symbol on click at this cell. So for that we're going to first start writing the script for a cell. So this is going to be cell controller, and here we want to add an if input dot on mouse down. We want to change the sprite renderer. So firstly we'll maintain a state that is going to be of type int. Let's make it public so that it's visible outside as well. That initially it's going to be 0, and if the state is not 0, we don't need to update. When the cell is clicked, we are going to update the state to the person whose chance person who has the player who has clicked on the state, who has clicked on the cell. So right now I'm just updating it to 1, and we will save two sprites, player 1 and player 2, and these are also public, and we'll assign them from the outside. So game object dot get component, we need to first get the sprite renderer. Once we have the sprite renderer, we need to assign the sprite to be equal to player 1 here. And this will do. Let's try it out. So first we go to the square, add the cell controller script. So we're getting on mouse down is not defined on input. So that's because we wrote the wrong function name, and it's supposed to be get mouse button down. And this function also takes in an argument 0 for the primary button. We need to add a small return here. Seems like we missed that part. So our state has changed, but we haven't assigned the player 1 and player 2 sprites yet. So that's why the sprite is not showing up. So let's assign X for player 1, the cross for player 1, circle for player 2. So we have the sprite as well, but it's not visible on the screen. And let's check out what the problem is. So if we search for circle, we need to bring it to the front. So since we have set it to transparent, it's not actually visible. So instead of having a transparent sprite, we'll just set the sprite to none initially. And then when we click on it, it's going to add the non-transparent sprite. Yeah, we got a cross. So the size of the sprite is not correct. So we'll resize it to uh, 1 1. And let's check out by placing the correct sprite here. So it's still huge. That's the size we want. So instead of scaling the square, we can also scale the sprite by clicking on the sprite, and then so here in the pixels per unit, if you increase the pixels, the size decreases. And here we have decreased it to a very large extent, but we want to increase the size now. This seems fine. We'll do the same for the circle. Set it to 300. Now for square one, initially set the sprite to none. Test it out now. So on clicking the button, we did get a cross, and this seems fine. So there is a small change in the script that I wanted to inform you guys. Here in the click, I was using get mouse input.get mouse button down in the update function, which basically checks for any click on the whole screen. And that is not what we want. We want to check for the click on the component, on the cell. So for that, we are going to use on mouse down. And to use on mouse down, you have to first create a collider. So we created a box collider with is trigger on, and now we have created a square prefab. That square prefab has the following main changes. So we have added the cell controller script, we have added the box collider, and here in the sprite renderer, we have set the sprite to none and the color to opaque as we saw in the previous video. Also, here we have added the player 1 and player 2 sprites. Now, once this sprite is ready, you can open your tic-tac-toe sprite, tic-tac-toe prefab, and change the cells in the prefab to the new prefab created by you. So that will make this game ready for basically clicking the cells and getting the crosses. So on my first click, I got a cross. Here's my second click. So it's working fine. In this video, we configured the buttons of the type Text Mesh Pro, and we also added crosses and text to the tic-tac-toe. So now the user can click on any cell and it would be replaced by the user symbol. It would also trigger a change in the player's chance. So if you player 1 clicks, it will be player's 2 chance next, and vice versa. So we have configured the main logic to click on the cells, and in future videos we will learn how to code the actual tic-tac-toe logic, which will ensure that some player wins the game if the player has a row filled with the same symbols, column, or the diagonal. So we have all played a normal tic-tac-toe. Even though this is a mega version, the main logic remains the same.